This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here with your latest Meteo Mundo video. This is your tropics update for Tuesday, October the 17th. We continue to monitor that disturbance in the southern Atlantic basin with a high likelihood of development and potential impacts for the islands late in the week. As we get started, hit that like button for me. I appreciate you. And drop a comment in the section below as well. Love to know where you're viewing us from. You have any specific questions about the forecast, drop that in as well. We'll answer them for you. But I hope by the end of the video, you all have a good idea of the potential impacts from this disturbance in the days ahead. So let's take a look at it, the broad perspective again. We'll zoom in a little bit closer for you here on this Tuesday midday. Now, first of all, this disturbance looks better compared to Monday morning. It looks better organized compared to Sunday morning. The trend continues to slowly develop this. And the Hurricane Center still feels like there is a very high chance that we are going to at least get a tropical depression out of this disturbance over the next couple days. But there's also a high likelihood we get Tropical Storm Tammy and even the potential to get Hurricane Tammy as well. At this point in time, though, it's still a disturbance. And again, because of that, this red area, friends, it is not a track. Okay, it is the area the Hurricane Center feels that this disturbance will be moving, where in that area, that development is going to be likely. So we can't talk a lot in absolutes right now, okay? We don't even have a depression, we don't have a closed center of circulation, and we don't even have our first track from the Hurricane Center. But what I will do is pour over all the newest data. We'll take a look at some of the likelier scenarios and the potential impacts for some of the areas that we're going to be mentioning coming up. So that's the enhanced satellite imagery here. We can take a look at a lot of products, and we're going to take it real nice and slow in this video, look at a lot of different things and kind of break it down for you from a lot of different angles. This is the visible satellite imagery of this disturbance. Again, there is not as much cloud formation on the western side. It is still fighting some drier air and some wind shear out west, but it's looking a little bit more impressive on the northern and the southern and the eastern sides. Now, what I expect to happen is that wind shear to weaken, and overall the low level circulation is more impressive and more organized on this Tuesday, and that trend should continue. This is the water vapor imagery from the low levels, and again, you can see, you notice how there is some kind of water vapor moving into the storm. It's beginning to ingest that, but we also will see outflow, and outflow dominated storms are the ones that tend to begin to develop and ramp up in intensity. And we're seeing that on 3 of the quadrants, but on the western and northwest sides, again, we're still kind of a little bit more ragged. That's great news, but the trend from the Hurricane Center is we're going to be getting into an area of even higher development potential over the next couple of days. Let me throw on the forecast models here and get back to the visible satellite imagery because it's just clear to see. I just want you to notice that our spaghetti plot computer models are running on this, and that Hurricane Center line, or excuse me, their cone of development is basically encompassing those areas. All right, let's get into the potential areas that could be impacted here. I'm going to start off kind of the broad perspective. The Hurricane Center has shifted this potential development area. Again, it's not a track, but these areas in red are the ones with the highest likelihood of potential developments from that disturbance if it were to develop and head that way. So let's break it down for you. Here are the areas that are under red. Just on the eastern side of the British Virgin Islands near Roadtown. That does not include St. Thomas. It doesn't include Puerto Rico. And just to the east of the U.S. Virgin Islands, including St. Croix. Areas that are under the red right now include Anguilla, Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Antigua, so the northern side of the Leeward Islands. Let me put those forecast spaghetti plots back on for you. And again, you can see they're relatively clustered to the far northeastern side of the Leeward Islands. Some of those take it close to Barbuda and Antigua. But again, we have to talk in very broad terms. These are certainly not absolutes. But again, just so you can see where the computer models are beginning to trend, which is a little bit slightly more towards the west. So for our friends in Montserrat, in Guadeloupe, and then down south of Guadeloupe towards Dominica, your area is under that red as well. And then a little bit farther off towards the south, Martinique, St. Lucia, and Barbados, all again in that potential development area. All this means at this point in time is that your areas have a higher chance of being impacted by this disturbance as it moves off towards the west, northwest. And again, looking at those computer models again, you'll see that they're basically not existent in these areas. They're going to be just slightly off towards the east. Again, put those on for you one more time. You can see they're going to be northeast of Guadalupe. So that's kind of the latest from the Hurricane Center as far as the areas that they expect could potentially be impacted by this disturbance. Let me show you the GFS model, and I've shown you this here over the last several days. We'll take a look at the reflectivity product out of this. So I'm just going to switch this model up real quick and we'll loop that for you. Now, the GFS model's trend over the last 24 hours is this: a stronger Tammy and closer to the islands. It's still east of the islands, but the shift has been farther west, getting closer to the northern Leeward Islands and as a stronger system. Let me back this back out in time, and you can see here, today is the 17th. So as we get into the weekend on Saturday and Sunday, this is the potential for Tammy on the GFS model to come closest to the islands. How close are we talking about? Well, let's zoom in first of all to this area, including Barbuda and St. Kitts and Nevis, and I will draw a line using that line tool that I have here. We'll go from Barbuda and we'll go out to the center of circulation. It's about 275 miles as the closest approach from the GFS model. Now, it's shaved off many miles. It's farther west, but there at least still is a buffer on the GFS, and that's good news because the GFS is now making this a stronger storm and potentially even a hurricane. So we want to keep it east, but again, the trend over the last 24 hours has been to be a little bit farther off towards the west. Let's take a look at the winds out of this as well. I'm going to put that into motion, and you're going to see a stronger storm out of the GFS model. Now, if you look at your legend above, and these are winds in knots, we are starting to see some of those purples and maybe even those blues begin to appear. Those would be winds indicative of a Category 1 hurricane, 70 plus knot mile an hour winds, Cat 1 hurricane. But again, what's the big news, at least with the GFS right now? East of the islands. It's going to kick up the surf and sea conditions if this solution holds true, but the direct impacts from Tammy would stay east. But again, it's farther west than what it was yesterday. So does that trend continue? It's simply too early to tell. This is why we have to look at these things every day and continue to monitor the situation as we go through time. But I wanted you guys to see that and the potential for the winds that have picked up within the GFS model. But again, away from Anguilla and St. Kitts and Nevis and Guadeloupe and Martinique, at least for now, but that buffer has reduced a little bit, at least at this time. All right, let's take a look at several other products here. I'm going to slide this out of the way. So the GFS model's chance of a tropical storm is still basically 100%. It feels like we are going to at least get Tropical Storm Tammy as the disturbance moves off towards the windward in the Leeward Islands. Chance for a hurricane is much lower, but it's not zero as well, in that 10 to 30% range here on the GFS model for the chance of a development of a hurricane. So again, most of the GFS model believes that it will be a tropical storm, low in chance right now of it becoming a hurricane. These are the GFS model pressure plots from the ensemble members that are running in the GFS model. And if you look down here, you're going to see, again, most of them are just to the north and east of the northern Leeward Islands, but several of them again wrap up a tropical storm, potentially even a hurricane. But just showing you again, they are fairly tightly clustered. In both the GFS and the European models, their ensemble members are fairly good agreement. Now, they have different solutions. The GFS model is stronger and farther off to the north and to the east. The European model is weaker, but takes it more directly over the islands. And that's the same scenario as yesterday. The European model is weaker, a tropical depression, maybe a tropical storm, but more direct impacts from a weaker system on the European model. And that would be from the northern Windward Islands through the Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and even portions of Hispaniola could be impacted if the European model were to hold true. But it would be a weaker storm overall. And that is a very high scenario because a stronger storm, as the GFS is showing, will more than likely be more impacted by our ridge of high pressure to the north, with that recurve occurring a little bit earlier. A weaker system, not as influenced, might be able to track a little bit farther west before it recurves. So again, the GFS models, you can see that black center line, that's the ensemble mean. It is still north and east of the islands, but a few of the members take it into the northern side of the islands, and several of them keep it even a little bit farther away. But the shift over the last 24 hours has been farther to the west. We have to, again, continue to watch and see, does that trend continue? We're not speaking in absolutes by any means, but again, if you live in these areas I just mentioned, you want to be aware of this system coming in late in the week and into the weekend. The European model is more ragged with the intensity of the storm, but it is farther off towards the west. You can see it right through the northern Leeward Islands, places like St. Kitts and Nevis and Barbuda, and the Virgin Islands and portions of Puerto Rico as well. So the GFS intensity against a stronger storm, now the ensemble mean is back to a Category 1 hurricane, generally just after it moves north of the islands. You can see the time frame on the bottom of your screen as we get into Friday. We still have a tropical storm, and then as it's basically shaving the islands, again, the GFS model has it just east and northeast of the islands. That's when it ramps up to become a hurricane. And you saw that in that wind product that I showed you earlier. As far as the European model goes, again, it's a weaker system. That's great news. Look, I mean, maybe this ends up just being a rainmaker and we get some much needed rain for some of your area. I'm still concerned, obviously, about all the other aspects that go along with this, including the intensity. But for the European model right now, it has it more as a weaker tropical storm. So let me break this down. I was thinking about how I could do this for you guys. And here's what I thought. I figured the best way to discuss what impacts we could see is to talk about the areas that potentially could see impacts. And I mean anything at this point in time. Wind, rain, potential flooding, rough surf and sea conditions. So these are the areas where impacts are possible. And if you live in these areas, I want you to stay aware of the system that'll be moving closer to you. They include Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, the Virgin Islands, Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Barbados. Again, these are the areas with the highest likelihood of impacts of whatever this disturbance is going to become. The areas with unlikely impacts include Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti, and the Turks and Caicos. I know you might be saying, Rusty, Haiti and the Dominican Republic are on the same island. Well, at this point in time for Hispaniola, I just expect some rough sea conditions on the eastern side of the island. If that were to change, obviously the impacts for Haiti could change as well. No impacts for the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, our friends in Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and in the Bahamas. This storm will be staying away from you. All right, friends, I want to get back to our system again, because if you've been watching us on our live streams, we are doing live streams basically almost 24 hours a day. This is what you're going to see if you go to our live stream. You're going to see live updated tropical tracks with the spaghetti plots. You're going to see live updated in real time enhanced satellite imagery, and then live updated in real time temperatures as well. So if you go to the live tab of Meteo Mundo, you're going to see this cycling through, and even my latest forecast video as well. So drop in from time to time and take a look at that. And we're not just covering the areas that potentially could see impacts from Tammy, but across the Caribbean and the Bahamas as well. If you want to do us a big favor and you want the latest forecast, hit that subscribe button. We'll let you know when we are live streaming, and we'll let you know when we have the latest videos up as well. And that certainly helps the channel as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate you very much for subscribing and liking this video. And again, we'll see you shortly with the latest updates right here